The history of the Jonsson surname. Welcome to History of Families. If you've ever tried to find a specific Jonsson online, you already know there are a lot of them. Jansen is everywhere, on mailboxes, in phone books, and stitched on the backs of sports jerseys. But where does this mighty name come from, and how did it become so omnipresent? Today on History of Families, we're tracing the Jonsson surname from its ancient roots to its global footprint. We'll meet medieval monks, Scandinavian immigrants, Scottish clans, 2 U.S. presidents, and yes, even a mountain man nicknamed Liver-Eating Jonsson. Buckle up. Jonsson literally means son of John. Simple until you realize how deep the name John runs. We start with the Hebrew Yohanan, meaning Yahweh has favored, or God is gracious. That reverent meaning traveled from Hebrew to the Greek Iones, then to the Latin Johannes, and finally into medieval Europe like a string of pearls passed from hand to hand. The Normans brought their version into Britain, think Jihan, and the Middle Ages did the rest. With saints like John the Baptist and John the Evangelist venerated across Christendom, John became the people's name, not just nobles, everyone. Medieval classrooms were basically an echo chamber. The teacher calls, "John," 8 hands go up. Which John? Tall John? Smith John? John from Leeds? Leeds John nods solemnly. That everyday chaos is exactly how surnames like Jonsson were born. As the medieval world grew, single names weren't cutting it. People started adding descriptors. John the Smith, John Short, John of Norwich, or, crucially, John's son. Jonsson belongs to that patronymic world, a surname taken from a father's given name, literally, son of John. Early on, that label could change every generation. John's son might be Jonsson, and his son might be Robertson, if dad was Robert. Over the 13th to 16th centuries, these movable tags froze into hereditary surnames. That's when Jonsson stuck. A quirky linguistic divide helped shape where Jonsson thrived. In northern England, names ending in son ruled the roost: Johnson, Robinson, Richardson. In the south and along the Welsh borderlands, the possessive S took over. First Johns and later Jones. That's why Wales is famously Jones country, while the north leans Johnson. Language leaves footprints. You can map dialect on a surname. Paper trails confirm the story. We see Johnson and look-alike spellings sprinkled through the record books from the 1200s onward. An entry in 1220 in England, John Johnson in Surrey in 1287, Wattier Johnson in Berwickshire in 1296. Separate places, same idea. Lots of Johns became lots of Johnsons. By the 14th century, Johnson sits among England's most common surnames. By the 1500s, it's everywhere in marriage registers, from Norfolk to Lancashire to Yorkshire.
Let's take a quick pit stop for a common mix-up. Jonsson and Johnston are not the same name. Jonsson is patronymic, son of John. Johnston, or Johnstone, is toponymic, John's town, and it often points back to Annandale in Dumfriesshire, Scotland. They sound alike and get tangled in old records, but their roots are different. One points to a person, the other to a place. If your line is Johnston, your trail may run through land and lordship. If it's Johnson, you're chasing a father's given name. In Scotland, Jonsson threads through clan history. Northern Johnsons have a traditional tie to clan Gunn, including a line descending from John, the 3rd son of George Gunn, the hereditary croner of Caithness. That connection lets some Johnsons wear gun tartan with pride. There's more. The Gaelic MacIain, meaning son of John, and MacIain, were often anglicized to Jonsson, especially as families moved into the lowlands. The MacIains of Ardnamurchan lost their lands to the Campbells in the early 1600s, and the MacIains of Glencoe were scattered after the 1692 massacre. In the wake of upheaval, names shifted. For many families, MacIain becoming Jonsson was both a translation and a survival strategy. Across the Atlantic, the name sails early to North America. By the mid-1600s, you'll find Johnsons in Massachusetts, Connecticut, and Rhode Island. From there, it spreads with settlement and the push westward. But here's the big American twist: anglicization. The United States becomes a surname blender. Scandinavian Jonsson, Jansen, and Jonsson, Germanic Johannsen, Dutch Jansen, all carry the same meaning, son of John. On arrival, many families translate to the familiar Jonsson. Multiply that by generations, and you understand how Jonsson becomes the number 2 surname in the United States, even though it ranks only 8th in the United Kingdom. It's not just British heritage, it's many European patronymics converging into one powerful American name. Worldwide, Jonsson is estimated at roughly 3.36 million bearers, making it about the 154th most common surname on Earth. The largest cluster is in the United States, at roughly 2.29 million. But look closer, and the map tells deeper stories. In Nigeria, there are about 262,000 Jonssons. In England, around 191,000. In Togo, around 91,000. In Sierra Leone, close to 80,000. And in Canada, roughly 79,000. Those West African numbers aren't random. They reflect centuries of contact, from missionary schools and colonial administration to more complex legacies tied to the Atlantic world. In some cases, names like Jonsson were adopted, assigned, or embraced within new social structures. The surname's global spread isn't just about English settlers, it's about global human movement, often under difficult circumstances. So, where do Jonssons live today and why there? In the United States, you'll find strong clusters in Texas, California, Florida, Illinois, Georgia, and Minnesota. That last one, along with Alberta and Saskatchewan in Canada, hints at the Scandinavian story. Swedish and Norwegian Jansen families who anglicized to Jonsson on arrival. Language met landscape and left a surname behind. Back in Britain, 19th century data shows a dense Jonsson presence across the North and the Midlands. In 1891, Lancashire alone accounts for about 16% of all Jonssons in the UK. An industrial heartland with booming cities and plenty of Jansen names. Census snapshots put real texture on the name. In the 1921 UK census, Jonssons appear across the working world. Among men, the most common jobs include agricultural laborer with 4,506 records, coal miner with 4,422, farmhand at 4,367, general laborer at 4,253, and chauffeur or driver, semi-skilled, at 3,496. Among women, you'll most often see dressmaker with 4,436 records, laundress with 2,608, domestic servant with 2,502, general servant domestic with 2,356, and house servant with 1,920. It's a portrait of a surname embedded in the economic backbone: fields, mines, workshops, and households. And then, of course, there are the outliers. The frontier legend John Liver-Eating Jonsson, a woodhawk, whiskey peddler, and gold seeker, because there's always one cousin who takes career exploration very literally.
Fame finds this surname in every aisle. In politics, the United States has had 2 presidents named Jonsson. Andrew Johnson, the 17th president who served after Abraham Lincoln's assassination and became the first impeached president, and Lyndon B. Johnson, the 36th president who signed landmark civil rights laws. In literature and language, Samuel Johnson, born in 1709 and passing in 1784, was the towering critic and lexicographer whose Dictionary of the English Language helped standardize English. In business, Johnson & Johnson, founded in 1886 by the Jonsson brothers, revolutionized sterile surgical dressings and grew into a global healthcare giant. And in sports and entertainment, there's Irvin Magic Johnson, basketball royalty, and Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, a wrestling megastar turned global box office anchor. As a fun aside, Whoopi Goldberg was born Karen Johnson. Same surname, wildly different stories. That's the point.
Common surnames are a genealogist's final boss, and Jansen is no exception. Paper records bring spotty spellings, migrating families, and that recurring Johnson versus Johnston confusion. Enter genetic genealogy. Two tests matter most here. Y-DNA is passed from father to son, perfect for tracing a surname line like Jonsson. mDNA is passed from mother to children, ideal for following the maternal line. Jonsson DNA projects, including a broad JJ effort, Jonsson, Johnston, and Johnstone, use Y-DNA to sort families into distinct genetic clusters. Some clusters anchor in R1b lineages common across many Western European paternal lines, while a Clan Johnston-Johnstone project tracks men who are positive for IY8830 and related subclades. The upshot is simple. There isn't one Johnson Y signature. There are many. DNA helps you find your Johnson branch among millions who share the same label. And DNA doesn't replace documents, it teams up with them. A Y-DNA match can confirm that your Johnsons in Illinois really do connect to that Johnson line in Yorkshire, or show that they don't, saving you years of chasing the wrong John. Here's a key insight. Johnson ranks number 2 in the United States, but only number 8 in the United Kingdom. Why the gap? Because America became a melting pot of patronymics. Swedish Jonsson, Norwegian Jonsson, German Johansen, Dutch Jansen, many were translated or standardized to Johnson in English-speaking settings, on ship manifests, in mills and mines, at city halls, and especially on naturalization papers. The U.S. turned many parallel sons of John into a single dominant surname. So what does the name mean today? Across continents, Johnson has become more than etymology. In England and Scotland, it echoes medieval faith and regional speech. In Scotland, it carries threads of Clan Gun and Clan Donald through MacIain and MacIain. In North America, it became a translation of hope for migrants reinventing themselves. In West Africa, it intersects with colonial history and modern identity. It's a surname that holds multitudes: agricultural laborers and coal miners, dressmakers and domestic servants, presidents and poets, entrepreneurs and entertainers. The story isn't tidy because human history isn't tidy. If you're researching Johnsons, a few guardrails make the journey saner. First, map the dialect line. If your roots are Northern English or Lowland Scots, the SON names like Johnson make sense. The southern borderlands lean toward the SES forms like Johns and Jones. Second, don't assume Johnston equals Johnson. Check whether your records point to Annandale and other place names suggesting Johnston, or to clear patronymic usage suggesting Johnson. Third, watch for immigrant translations. A Scandinavian Jonsson or Johnson in 1880 can easily be Johnson by 1910, especially in Minnesota, Alberta, or Saskatchewan. Fourth, use Y-DNA wisely. A solid paper trail plus a Y-DNA match inside a recognized Johnson cluster can lock in your paternal branch or warn you to pivot. And fifth, follow the occupations. Coal miners may lead you toward Durham, Lancashire, or the South Wales coalfield. Farmhands often point rural. Chauffeurs and drivers tend to track into urban records. Here's the takeaway. Johnson began as 3 simple words, son of John, rooted in a name that means God is gracious. From there, it crossed languages, churches, borders, and oceans. It became a Scottish clan thread, a Scandinavian translation, an American mainstay, a West African inheritance, and a global badge worn by millions. If your name is Johnson, your past won't trace to a single patriarch. It branches into many origins, linguistic, regional, and cultural, that converged under one spelling. That's the beauty of it. Not one line, but a forest of lines growing side by side. This was History of Families. If this helped you see your name in a new light, give it a like, subscribe for more deep dives, and share it with the Johnsons in your life. Statistically, you won't have to look far. See you next time.